I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
I'm Larry Shepard. I had 29 and a half, and I had a year and a half of sick leave, so they give me credit for 31 years. I retired as a FEO, Fire Equipment Operator. I think they go by a different name now. I'm from Guilford County, and I went to Northeast High School like a lot of the older firemen did. And I grew up on a tobacco farm, and right out of high school I got on with the Greensboro Fire Department. I'm not related to any firemen on the fire department. They used to accuse me of being related to John Shepard, but it's a totally different Shepard group. I graduated in 1981 from high school, and I was working for a hardwood flooring company. That's where I learned my trade in flooring, and I put in an application to get in with the Greensboro Fire Department, and I was lucky enough to be hired. Started training March 1st, 1982. I never really even thought about being a fireman. I'd never been a volunteer, but I had an uncle that worked for the city of Greensboro, and he told me that the fire department was taking applications. When I was hired, the process to get on the fire department was to, of course, take a written test and an ability test, and then you go to the next process, which I think was the physical test at the training center, and then you had to take an interview. You did an interview, and the further you got in the process, the better chance I thought I was going to actually make it, because some people didn't even get to that far. So my starting salary when I got on the fire department was $986 a month. My training class consisted of 32 people. 32 people. 2 people didn't make it. I don't remember the number of the classes. I don't think we talked about the number of classes back then. But I came through training with guys like Wayne Henderson, Jay Campbell, Roger Brooks, Billy Combs. There was several of them. John Dwyer, he came from Guilford College. A lot of different guys, a lot of good guys. My training class consisted, I think it was 14 weeks, 2 weeks which were EMT. I did real good in the physical parts. Some of the written stuff was tough, not coming from the fire department. But I managed to make it. Yeah, there was one particular I shouldn't tell, but in training I kind of got the nickname of Guppy. And the reason Guppy, because when I did my sit-ups, I always put my hands behind my head and I had my mouth like that. Several different people in the class developed nicknames, and there's only a couple people that ever called me that after that. But if I see them to this day, they would still probably call me that. My first assignment on the line when I got out of training was at Fire Station 1 on Engine 1, and Captain Woody Parrish was my captain. First thing I remember about Woody Parrish, meeting him for the first time, was I thought to myself, man, this guy's going to be tough. He had that look about him. But once getting to know Woody, he was like a big teddy bear. My driver was Danny Nelson. I always admired Danny Nelson. He's done a lot of stuff for the fire department. My second driver was Bill Williams. He had the nickname of Buckets because he always looked like he was carrying buckets of water when he walked. And another fireman that was on the truck with me was Jesse Leroy Wilkins. My nickname was Shep, short for Shepard. Yeah, on the line there was a lot of pranks played on different people. I got folded up into the bed at Station 1 more than one time. I played a part of pranks, and when I was told in training, you know, you're going to get picked on, you're going to get, you know, you're going to go through the rookie stages. Just go along with it, and you'll get over it one day. Well, nothing was ever done to me that, you know, that really bothered me. I mean, it was all in fun. We all had fun. And but when we had a call or went into action, we were, you know, we were one group. My first assigned crew that I was with, we all cooked together and we all ate together, and that was some good times right there. And a lot of meals. Some of the staff from upstairs came down to eat with us because they liked the cooking too. I can remember my first time cooking. I fixed fried fish, slaw, hush puppies, and French fries. That was the first meal I ever cooked in a firehouse. I always thought it was important for the guys to cook and eat together. I was at one station where nobody particularly cooked and nobody really eat together. It was kind of different. I liked the way the stations were designed, where the bedrooms were all one bedroom, everybody in the same room. I realize nowadays everybody's got their own cubicles, and I was at one of those stations and I really didn't like it. It's just everybody had their own TV and everybody did their own thing, and it was just not the camaraderie of a one bedroom. I would say my favorite dish to cook was probably cube steak and gravy, because you could put it in a crock pot and you didn't have to babysit it all day. And it was fairly easy to do. There was one meal in particular that I know that I didn't do real well, and I always told the guys I was going to fix them a grudge meal, and when we sat down to eat it, one of the guys I asked, is this your grudge meal you've been talking about all the time? And it was loins I tried to cook in a bag, and I cooked them too long. They were quite tough. It was more like jerky. Yeah, Sundays was kind of a rest period time. If we got a call, we had to write a call, but we usually eat a big breakfast together, and then around lunchtime you'd start seeing some of the families show up and visit the fire station and bring the kids, and they would climb on the trucks and play on the trucks, and it was a good time to meet other firemen's families, because we were all one big family. I thought the families coming to the fire station and getting together was real good. I enjoyed it. Holidays, we tried to do that together, because, you know, a lot of times you had to work a holiday. You just couldn't be with your family at home. So we'd have meals together, and we would usually prepare it, and some of the wives would bring in dishes, and made our cooking look pretty bad, you know. I always liked seeing retired firemen show up at the fire station, and because they wanted to see what it was like during our period of time, and they would tell stories about their period of time. I actually even wrote a letter one time to administration about, I think the guys that show up retired to visit a station ought to be, people need to talk to them, not walk off from them, accept them. And some of the guys would come by and eat breakfast with us on Sundays. Jimmy Williams, he loved to come and eat breakfast with us on Sunday. Paul Kersey, he used to come by 15, he still paid divvy. Well, it's 48 now or whatever, but 15, he would still pay into the divvy to come by and sit with us in the morning, drink coffee, and visit us. I think nowadays, with the way the fire department is, they've got so much stuff to do, they don't take time to talk to guys anymore. And social media, yeah, everybody's on their phones, everybody's to their cell. You know, when I came on, my first cell phone was a brick phone. It stayed in your vehicle, but you didn't carry it around in your pocket and look at it every few minutes. When I wrote the letter to the administration, it was probably, I would say, in the late 80s. I got good responses from all the existing chiefs. Brad Cox, he emailed me back about it, or wrote me back about it. Several of them, I don't remember particularly who they all were, but they realized it too, because they had seen it. My first fire call was to one we run several times a day, and it was to Hall Towers on Church Street. I can remember running one particular call down there one morning, and I can still see the old lady in the lobby now. She says, "You got one this time." And we looked down the hall and we had smoke rolling out of a door. But those people were so complacent with having firearms that many times a day that the building wasn't evacuated. They were all in the rooms, and it was a mess. I really enjoyed writing the medical calls. The last year I was there, at the fire station, I was at Engine 10, and we were first in on the majority of our medical calls. And that particular year, our crew had 4 medical life saves because of the defibrillators, which were never used, but the combi tubes, and just getting started on them early. We had 4 saves as a company that year. The part of the medical calls that really bothered me was having to tell a family there was nothing that could be done for them. We had one particular call where an infant died. It really bothered me. 9/11 really woke up people in the fire service to realize that a department can lose 343 people on one incident. I can remember we were at EMT class at Fire Training Center when that started, and they broke the class, and we were all standing around the TV and just couldn't believe it. We were there when the second plane hit the other tower, and they broke class up, sent everybody back to the stations because nobody knew what was going on, and they wanted the stations and the territories to be covered. I had several people throughout my career that I really looked up to that really helped me. Danny Nelson, I mean, he had me, I learned that equipment on that truck, the ins and outs, and I can still recite how much CPMs a fan will move, an electric fan. I can still remember all my pump problems and my pump questions. Of course, they've all probably changed now, but some of that stuff you never forget. And he was real good with me. I learned my streets. I started driving fairly early on in the fire department, and he taught me ways to remember streets and how to remember streets. And then Woody Parrish was my first captain. He was great. And I've worked with Cliff Oakley. Cliff Oakley would say, "Hang on to my coat, here we go." And, you know, and he didn't have to worry about me letting go of his coat when we was in a house with no hose line looking for somebody, victims and stuff. FEO May, excellent truck company captain. I really enjoyed working with him. There's so many, I can't even name them all. And I kind of instilled that in me when I got people on my truck, to make sure they knew the equipment, make sure they knew how to use the equipment. Some of the troubleshooting problems, pumping with them. I like to see guys get out there and want to run the trucks in the morning and know how to operate the truck. I think everybody coped with the death of victims and the death of firefighters differently. I mean, I can remember early in my career going to 2 funerals back to back that were firemen, and that was tough. And then families, you know, that lose loved ones, that was tough. Car wrecks, people killed, house fires, pulling somebody out of a house, there's nothing you could do for them. I think a lot of firefighters cope with stuff like that, but it's not even talking to anybody about it, just kind of maybe realizing it was just part of the job. There should have been some times where somebody should have been brought in maybe to talk to guys. I know the guys that were on that Elm Street fire several years ago, I'd already retired, but just what they went through, I think somebody should have maybe talked to those guys, talked to the families. There was an incident one time where we lost a Greensboro guy in a building, and we were fortunate enough to get him for him to find his way out. He had left the hose line, and I can still hear him now. That's back when everybody didn't have a radio, just a captain, and that was it. And he happened to be riding captain that day, and I can still hear him come over the radio and say, "I'm lost, and I can't find my way out." But we were fortunate enough that a truck company had set a light up on the loading dock, and he saw that light and went to it. If I had to go back and do it all over again, the one thing I definitely would have probably done was made time to go to class to make my at least career 1 development, career 2 development, and maybe finished my fire science degree and made captain. I passed several captain's tests, but without the degree, you didn't really stand a chance of making it during my later years. I knew when I was on 5 years and I wasn't eligible to take a captain's exam, and not ever being on a volunteer department or anything, I knew myself that I wasn't ready to assume that responsibility. I didn't feel like I had the knowledge to pursue that responsibility. By the time I felt like I was there, it was a little too late. Take the process, and you didn't get any points for not having a fire science degree. And there's a lot of guys that I can remember that would have made great captains that never had the opportunity to make captain. I'm not just one. I never had the opportunity to work at a station on my shift with any of the female firefighters. I had female firefighters that I fought fire right side by side. They were great firemen. Never had any problems with any of them as far as not being able to do the job. I'm glad to see that nowadays there are more and more females getting involved in the fire department. But I don't know what process they go through, if it's any different than the men, but I know in the past there was a few that I think they kind of slid them through. And I didn't like that, but I thought fire right side on a bunch of good girls. Some of the changes I've seen in the fire service since I've left, or even when I came on, we didn't do the community service stuff as much in the beginning as done now. I know when I left, we were real heavily involved in putting up smoke detectors, doing pre-plans, doing building inspections. We were testing our hydrants twice a year. I mean, there was several things we were doing. I don't particularly know of some of the changes that they're doing now that were any different than that, other than they're probably doing a lot more training on the drill ground since they have a new, nice facility to train in. I know some of the stuff that we used to train on, they don't train on now. I doubt if there's many firemen now that remember what a palm pier ladder was. You know, that was a tough exercise. But I like the fire department being seen and being active. I think sometimes there needs to be more news media about what it takes to be a fireman, like particularly like when we used to take a truck to the grocery store to get groceries. What are you doing bringing a truck? They don't realize that you have to eat there. You're there 24 hours and nobody feeds you. You got to feed yourself. So stuff like that. And they used to write a complaint, and then we'd hear about it. Don't take the trucks to the store, and don't do this, you know. But somebody should have said something. Well, some of the things that people might not know about me is that I grew up on a tobacco farm. I've worked hard all my life. During the fire department, I had a flooring business I run it 5 years after I retired. So 35 years doing hardwood flooring. I used to love hunting. I kind of give up hunting, but I love gardening. I live on a big farm now with my wife, and I still raise vegetable gardens. I work a job. I go to work I work 12-hour shifts. I work 10 days or 15 days a month. I'm not going to just lay down. I'm not ready to lay down. I'm still young. I think a successful firefighter is a guy that goes to work and does his job and goes home to see his family every night, that mentors people under him, helps them along in their careers, and ultimately retires. I would like the fire department to remember me as a good driver. I did my job. I got us to the call. I was always able to get water on the fire. I liked, like I said, working with the personnel and making sure they knew the trucks. I worked with a bunch of nice young guys. When I left the fire department, there was a lot of young guys on the fire department. I'd seen the swing from majority old to majority young, and I was one of the older. I would like my family to realize that I'm a good guy. I'm a hard worker. I would like to leave a message to the current firefighters. Do the best you can. Look after one another. And maybe one day you all retire.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.